Quality of Life radio show, Tuesdays at 10 on WPSL and WSTU on TuneIn and Alexa.
Rosso Cleaners has been there for you here on the Treasure Coast for more than 3 decades. Rosso Cleaners Valet Service, 985-2143. It's been serving all of St. Lucie County, North Stewart, and Palm City with no delivery fee. A Rosso Cleaners with 3 locations to serve you. Or call the valet service, 985-2143. That's 985-2143. A Rosso Cleaners.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Have you ever walked into a room and felt like something or someone was there with you? Do you believe in ghosts? Is there a way to investigate unexplained experiences? You are in the right place, for Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. The ghost guy, Larry Lawson, is your host. With years of experience in law enforcement, he knows how to search for the truth. Stay right here as Larry and his guests from around the world discuss paranormal evidence and answer your questions about encounters with the other side.
The Other Side. I'm Larry Lawson, the Ghost Guy, your host. Welcome back for another exciting show, and we are currently being engineered by
the guy that's trying to find out if your microphone's on or something.
There you go.
Is there a button on that one?
You can't hear me.
Right. Yeah. For some reason, we're not. Very interesting. Let's see. Give it a keep talking, and we'll see if.
Here I am. The Ghost Guy is there. Is that working better?
No, maybe it's the microphone. That's not the headsets.
Can you hear me yet?
Now I can.
There we
There
go.
he is.
Oh, I've appeared like a specter in the night.
Yeah. What was that all about? Maybe we
I
can have somebody analyze
I have
that.
no idea. Yeah.
Maybe we ought to do a little conducting of some experiments to see if there might be something lingering in here from the past.
Could be. Anyway, welcome, folks. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, also known as the Ghost Guy, back with you for another exciting show with encounters on with the other side. So thanks for being here. And Cliff Desmond, the man at the desk that engineers this show. You know, it's kind of interesting. Even though it's science fiction, paranormal science fiction, UFOs all kind of have their links. And today's kind of a cool day. Captain Kirk goes to space.
Yeah, where reality has kicked in on what was once just a great TV show to watch. The captain of the Starship Enterprise actually rode a real starship and just got back from a trip to outer space.
Yeah, and the only thing is, do you think he tried to take command of the?
Well, that's what I was wondering. I could imagine some of the crew members saying, "Sorry, you're not on the Enterprise anymore. You're in a real SpaceX spaceship." You know, it might have to been straightened out a little bit. But then, of course, it looks as if we're going to be welcoming in your guest in just a moment here.
Oh, very good.
Who is your guest this morning?
A gentleman named Christopher George, a retired park ranger. He's served various parks throughout the country, and his first paranormal experience was as a young child growing up in the mining town. Mining towns interest me, of Leadville, Colorado. He's a photography and history enthusiast, but he also has a passion for everything paranormal, and that includes not only ghosts, which we'll talk about in detail shortly, but also UFOs, Bigfoot, the whole bit. He's quite an interesting character. His early work in the world of the paranormal was really pretty interesting because it was on the Queen Mary with renowned paranormal investigator Peter James. And Peter James is one of the first people to really bring EVPs out to the public, and I'm going to get Chris to talk about that a little bit. And he spent a lot of time on the Queen Mary. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the Queen Mary is known to be haunted, and it's docked in Long Beach. And Chris had a big part of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. He's retired today, though. He runs a group called Cannabis Paranormal Research Organization, or APRO.
His microphone is muted though.
His
He
microphone
needs to
is muted.
unmute his mic. I don't know if he can hear us.
I'll send him a text.
Okay.
I will send him a text.
So the Queen Mary is known
Yeah.
to be haunted, and he's been aboard the Queen Mary, and well, I'd imagine that he probably pulled out a spirit box or a ghost box and did a little testing of paranormal activity.
Oh, he'd done all kinds of things. And the Queen Mary is really a fascinating spot. It's one of those bucket places that I want to go. Do want to make a quick mention before we get going of all the things that we've got going this month at Indian River Hauntings. We've got several tours, and I want to encourage everybody to go to our website at www.indianriverhauntings.com to find out when we're doing tours in Sebastian and in Vero Beach, and an event out in Fellsmere. But more importantly, we're doing a couple of benefit events the end of the month. On the 29th, we're going to be at Captain Hiram's in Sebastian, Florida, doing a talk on the paranormal, demonstrating our equipment, and all the proceeds from that are going to be going to the Indian River Learning Alliance, a terrific organization that helps young people with reading and other scholastic skills. And we're very excited to be partnered with them on that. And also then on the 30th, we're going to be at a place called the Tangelo Apartments. It's a 1921 apartment building in Vero Beach. And we're going to be doing the same type of thing there the next night before Halloween. And all those proceeds are going to go to the Indian River County Historical Society. So we're really, really excited about that. So folks, if you're interested in joining us, learning a little bit about what we do, join us in one of our tours or one of these events, and help out some folks in your community. Very excited about that.
Okay, he has a little microphone icon in the lower left-hand side of his screen, and if he clicks it, it'll unmute, and we'll be able to hear him. Oh, and he just he
Okay.
might be rebooting. Maybe he's having some trouble.
Could be. Hopefully he'll be back on in just a second. But
Okay.
yeah, this is definitely Indian River Hauntings. This is our time of year with tours and everything like that. And I think a lot of it has to do with just people enjoying the holiday season, Halloween season, I should say. Some folks just like the mystery of it. Some people just like to get scared once in a while. Where do you fit into that, Cliff?
Oh, I was trying to troubleshoot. I'm sorry.
Oh,
about
yeah.
that.
No
I'm trying to help him get his audio going.
No.
But I'm probably into it somewhere along the line, I'm sure, because I'm interested in all of it.
I think he just might have come back up yet. Do we hear him yet?
Let's see. Well, no, his microphone still shows unmuted. That's the lower left-hand corner of his screen. There's a little microphone, and if you click it, it'll unmute, and we should be able to hear him.
Okay, I'm just sending him another text.
But William Shatner going into outer space, that is amazing, because one thing we think about when we think of space, we think of the Starship Enterprise.
Oh yeah, didn't we? We all grew up with that. We all grew up with everything that.
But William Shatner is also known for recording songs and his
Right.
special way of reciting the lyrics. Very interesting. Imagine, if you would, the David Bowie song, Ground Control to Major Tom.
Yeah.
I could imagine William Shatner doing it. Ground Control to Major Tom. Countdown engines on. And he goes on with, that's the way he does the lyrics. And I can't wait until he does. We'll definitely have to buy that record.
Absolutely. So remember, folks, this is also a call-in show. We'd love to hear a little bit from you on your thoughts, your opinions, your things that may have happened to you over the years. I know many people have had experiences as children. Some people, like myself, didn't have anything happen until they were adults. But if you get a chance and you're listening, give us a call in. Let us hear a little bit more about what you've experienced. We're still trying to get my guest on here, but it looks like
he might need to call in on the phone.
yeah.
We can do that if we have to.
Okay.
And then of course, once he figures out, maybe he's new to Zoom, hasn't used Zoom before, but the microphone has to be on, and of course it has to be unmuted. to work.
Okay, I guess I could tap dance here a little bit.
Well, 772-340-1590, maybe he could call us in by landline, and then, of course, as we progress through the show, and he can hit that icon in the lower left-hand corner of the screen.
772.
340-1590. 772-340-1590.
Okay, we'll give that a try. Let's see, because I feel bad for him now. If I was on his end, I would be feeling very frustrated
oh, yeah.
and embarrassed either. But yes, I also want to remind everybody too, we've actually filmed 3 television shows on WVWW TV 30 local television. And we're going to be seeing those episodes hopefully sometime this month during the Halloween season. And that'll give everybody a chance, an opportunity to see what we do, to see how, what we do in our investigations and things. I think it's going to be fun. You going to watch, Cliff?
Oh, yes, yes. I see some of your YouTube stuff. You've got stuff on YouTube, and it's very impressive. It's done in such a professional manner, like you see the guys on television. Sometimes you run across these shows where they're actually doing the kind of work that you do, and it's all conducted very professionally. It's nothing to be afraid of, because have you ever had any problems from a guest on one of your tours? Get maybe spooked or scared, and anything? Has anybody ever felt like they were in any kind of danger while doing this kind of thing?
I've never experienced any of my guests feeling like they were in danger. There have been times where they become emotional. We've had a couple of instances where people believe they've either made contact with a family member or maybe even just something there, and they become a little bit emotional. But I can't really say scared, because the way we present it, it's not a jump scare type of event, but we'll get stuff on our equipment, and folks will become kind of emotional with it. They're experiencing something.
Yeah, that's strange. It's not common. It's not
Guest is line. Okay, here we go.
There we
We're
go.
trying to get a guest on line 1 here.
He's right there.
Okay. Sorry for the delay, folks, but I do appreciate your patience.
Okay, Christopher is on the phone with us now.
Chris, you with us?
Yeah,
Are you having an encounter on the other side with your Zoom system there out in Colorado?
I'm starting to wonder.
Oh, that felt good.
Okay.
Hang on a second.
Oh.
Okay, well, it must be
There is
something.
that little microphone icon in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, and it says mute or unmute. And when you click it, it'll unmute you, I think. If you find it down in the bottom, I think it's a left click. Okay, so all right, now let me fix your mic.
Yeah, all right.
How's that better?
Yeah. Hey,
You gotta
Chris.
get right up to your mic.
Well, okay. I am wanting to hear Chris. Chris, can you tell me something? Yeah. Well, this is definitely something messing with our the other side. this
Maybe
time.
we ought to bring your equipment down here some night and kind of see what's going on.
We should do
We've
that,
got-
Cliff. We should.
Uh-huh.
Tavin, you're
Yeah.
very muffled there, Chris. Very, very
But we
muffled.
can see you though. Oh, I can hear them too, but that's the phone. Yes. Okay.
Well, let's run. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us. Sorry for the little headache there, the little interruption.
No problem. No problem.
Well,
Every time I get on or do something, it seems like the other side is always trying to prevent me.
You know what? Yeah. Have you ever experienced resistance from the other side?
oh, yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll get things like they'll drain our batteries. They'll go out of their way to inhibit what we're doing. Sure, that happens.
We
That-
call
that- it does
when
happen.
when a wrench is thrown into the machinery.
Like today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no
There we
doubt.
go. Okay.
Maybe we're onto something.
Yeah. So anyway, Chris, been telling folks a little bit about you, your work as a park ranger, and how that really melded into your work with the paranormal. But really, this started out for you as a youngster, didn't it?
Very much so. When I was approximately, I got hurt. Somebody's trying to tell us something. No, actually, it started when I was extremely young, probably about 7 or 8, living in Colorado here. But I was in a town called Leadville, and Leadville is, for all facts and matters, the highest incorporated city in the world. It's at 10,420 feet above sea level.
Oh my.
So it was also very active in the 1800s as a mining community, one of the leading mining communities. And if anybody is familiar with Molly Brown on the Titanic, that's where they discovered their fortune, in Leadville.
Ah.
So each area of town is covered with quite a few old mines. And in fact, the scariest thing was I used to go play around those things when I was little. And our home was actually up against a tailings drop where they would take all the refuse from the mines and then they would dump it, and it would literally create a hill or a mountain. And we lived there, and one evening I was awake and I saw whom I thought was my father standing in the doorway. And I started talking to him and he didn't respond. And I even went as far as saying, "Boo, Daddy, boo." And can you hear me okay?
You're very,
Yeah.
you're very muffled, but as long as everybody else can hear you, I'm fine with that. So here we go. We're trying that. As long as everybody else can hear you, I'm fine with that. So go ahead, continue.
Yeah. So primarily, I saw this entity standing in my doorway. And the next morning, I asked my father, "What are you doing standing in my door?" And he claimed that he had not been at my door and that I was dreaming and it was all in my imagination.
Oh, wow.
And so the next night, instead of the one, there was 2 of them. But again, they never said anything. And that was the beginning of the road for me when I started dealing with it.
Uh-huh. Sorry, just switching headphones. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me there?
Go ahead.
Okay. So that's how I got started in the whole process.
And
And
then,
years later, I continue to have different experiences, including what I believe as a UFO contact with a possible interaction. I woke up again in the middle of the night. There was a blue light out in front of our house. And the next thing I know, I went up to the window and looked out the window, and I could feel the cold of the pane of the window on my forehead. And all I saw was what I could assume to be a huge owl. It had the big eyes, and that's what my mind was telling me, that it was this owl.
okay.
And then I just winked out. And the next morning, I woke up in bed. So I'm not sure what happened in that regard, if I was abducted or if I was just not meant to see what I was meant to see. And then continuing on, I've always been fascinated by the paranormal. Moved out to California and started my adventures on the Queen Mary.
Yeah, a lot of folks, they give credit, and rightfully so, to the Warrens, Hans Holzer and everything, but you don't hear as much about Peter James today as we did in the 70s, yet he was a real groundbreaker himself, wasn't he?
Oh, very much so. But he was criticized because he could get the spirits to actually audibly make connections with him. So everybody in the room could hear the spirits. And a lot of them called him a cheat, that he was trying to manipulate the situation. And he wasn't. He was a very sincere man. And I learned quite a bit from him. And again, that was completely by accident when I was about 14 and I was exploring the ship on my own. I used to sneak aboard the Queen Mary. I knew all the ins and outs. And this one particular time I went back to the propeller shaft and I was covered completely in rust and grime and everything because nobody ever goes back there. And I'm searching and I got my recorder and so on. And I come out, I go around the corner and here's this man standing there. He turns and looks at me. He's very surprised by the condition I'm in. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I turned and I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And Peter said to me, he said, "I asked you first." And he, he had this really funny look on his face. And I said, well, in a very sheepish manner, I responded, "Well, I'm ghost hunting." And he just meant, "That's great. So am I. Tell me what you found." And from that point on, he and I became very good friends. And we worked together on and off on different things. And I'd accompany him on different tours of the ship and record some of those tours. And he was really a very sincere, really great man. And I truly do miss him.
He, the first time I remember seeing him, I believe it was on one of, was it Leonard Nimoy's show? I'm not sure, but he actually did
In Search Of?
I'm sorry?
In Search Of?
It could have been In Search Of, but I remember him actually on the Queen Mary, and it's the first time I think we ever heard a disembodied voice or an EVP, I can't remember which, on broadcast television.
Sure.
And that's
No.
how I remember him, with the big mustache.
Yeah.
And
Yep. He had white hair and a black mustache.
yes.
And he kind of like me right now, except without the hair. But he had one particular entity that he was very close to, and that was Jackie. And Jackie was a little girl. They believe she had drowned in the pool. And there were a lot of records of deaths on the Queen Mary, but some of them were missing because during the war, after the war, I should say, when all the war brides were coming across to the United States, there was a lot of wives with children. And they believe Jackie was one of these children that kind of just ventured out on her own and fell into the pool and drowned. And she's very active. I've even seen.
Yeah, there's been a number of investigations done on the ship where contact has been made with this little girl who allegedly drowned. I mean, I've heard of it several other times on there. Gonna ask you another. I know your connection to the Queen Mary is significant, and you've done a lot of work on there.
Yeah.
In fact, you've done a lot of public events on there also. But there was on a TV show, I won't mention which one, they actually caught the possibility of some shenanigans where they were faking some evidence. Do you recall that one?
Yes. There's always going to be that problem, I think, with anything anybody does. Now, the Queen Mary has accepted the role that she plays as far as being a paranormal hotspot. But there have been moments that have appeared to have been actually manipulated. But I can assure you from my own personal experience that ship is extremely active. I've had more encounters with the Queen Mary than.
Well, and I think many people have, and I don't think there's any question that the Queen Mary has that type of activity on it at all. Yeah, apparently we've lost your audio there, Chris. Apparently we've lost your audio, but yeah, there's no question there's been plenty of paranormal activity on there, but unfortunately those types of situations cause people to question the field as a whole. So that's the sad part about it is, and I don't know if you can hear me, my friend, but we've lost your audio again. So we're going to work on getting that back in just a couple of seconds. But that, yeah, the Queen Mary is definitely on my bucket list We having any luck getting him back there covered?
No, he's on, I think he's on his phone there now. We were picking it up from the phone,
Okay.
and when you get this, his microphone is now showing itself as muted. He should be able to unmute his mic now, and if he unmutes the mic into the Zoom, I think.
Okay. We're gonna this has been quite the show. This is almost like April Fool's Day in October. Okay, let's see if that works any better.
Wow.
Yeah, this is definitely odd because normally this system works flawlessly, but once again, this might be a good time to bring up a couple of things. First of all, I want to make mention of our friends at Paranormal Brewery in Sebastian, Florida. One of the coolest spots that you can go. Very dog friendly, very family friendly. They're located at 712 Cleveland Street in Sebastian, and it's just a great family place. Great beer, and their motto is beer is good, and I totally agree with that.
I like the name of the beer too.
Pareidolia. I mean, that was almost synchronicity.
I've heard that term used on television recently.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because you can look at just about anything, and you might look at a tree trunk or something and see some kind of a looks like a picture in there. It's because our brain's trying to figure out what we're seeing, and it kind of helps you turn it into something. It uses your own imagination, for instance. Now,
Can you guys hear me? Okay. I swear something's going on here.
Now we got you on the.
I'm going to run my ghost box to myself here so I can see what's going on.
That is just wild stuff. Wild stuff.
It's almost like it doesn't want me to talk about things. And, ironically, this has happened before. And it's like, what the heck? Because I go through the system and I look and everything is set right, but then it starts to shift off. So I'm not sure.
Myself.
Yeah, we've all been there. Getting back on track just a little bit.
Where were we?
I find your work with Peter James particularly interesting, but here you are now. You've gotten older. You went to you got your degree in outdoor law enforcement, which is basically park ranger law enforcement.
Right.
And you become a park ranger in various spots. How did that connect with your interest in the paranormal? Was there any?
Well, it's ironic because, of course, my first love and passion was being a park ranger. And, it was instilled in me also at a very young age. And I went ahead and continued to pursue it. But in the same time, I was also interacting with paranormal studies. I had gone to UCLA to go through their paranormal department. Back then, they had a division at UCLA. And so I went through the courses, and at the same time, I was still working to be a ranger. So it kind of went hand in hand. And once I became a ranger, word got out that I was interested in the paranormal field. And so they started asking me to visit sites that were allegedly having issues. That was the best way of saying hauntings.
Yeah.
And so I would take a team and go into these parks. And I mean, it wasn't just local parks for me. I was being sent all over the place. And I would help investigate, especially the missing 411 cases.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that in a couple of seconds. But you say they asked you to go investigate cases. What type of cases? I mean, yes, missing persons, but anything other?
Yeah. Well, in the very beginning, it was haunted historical places in the parks. So they were having issues of noises and things being misplaced and apparitions being seen. And so they, at that time, of course, the Park Service did not like to advertise anything negative that might influence participation in coming to the parks.
Sure.
And so they wanted somebody to go in there and disprove. And in a lot of the cases, I was able to disprove. You've got mice and rats and so forth that are in the barns or in the historical
That
buildings.
itself might scare some folks off. but-
Exactly, exactly. So a lot of the scratching, a lot of that was easily disproved. But
Mhm.
there were cases where there wasn't an explanation, and we had to go full bore. We came out and legitimately said, yes, this place is haunted.
Well, let me
And-
hold you up just there for a second. So you were officially sanctioned by your governmental agency to go in and determine if there was anything paranormal going on.
Right.
Sometimes you proved that it was natural, man-made, or whatever. It wasn't anything paranormal. And other times you couldn't. How did how did your bosses feel about that?
They tried to cover it up. Unfortunately, again, dealing as much as I've had with the Park Service, it has to do with a lot of the revenue issues. Uh, again, it doesn't always look good to have a haunted location. But on the other hand, in today's reality, it's one of the biggest money generators. People love to go to haunted locations and see and possibly witness what has been told.
It did
And
switched a little bit. Now you were with the state, though,
Exactly.
correct? You were not with the federal Park Service. You
no,
were-
I was with both. I was with
Okay.
both.
Okay.
So yeah, I went from one to the other.
Okay.
And but with the federal government, that was the one where they wanted to send me to quite a few places, different national parks. Because again, a lot of these incidences were not reported. There is no accounting in the National Park Service of missing people or incidents.
Really?
And it's very frustrating. And it is one of the main reasons, in addition just to other things, that I went ahead and left the service, because they would try and cover it up as much as possible.
Interesting. So what was probably the most intriguing, interesting spot they sent you to investigate?
Well, one of the biggest would have been Crater Lake National Park. And there had been a young man who had visited the park on several occasions and knew it very well. And he liked to hike around the rim of the park. And he told his friend to come back for him in 48 hours. And so the friend left, the kid went ahead and started hiking. Well, 48 hours later, he arrives at the site where he's supposed to pick up his friend, and no show. And so he waits about maybe a half a day and still no show. And so they went ahead, this young man went ahead and notified the rangers that his friend was missing. He was supposed to have been back, but didn't show up. So they apparently went out and they found something. And then I get the call. Now, at that time, I was down at Smoky Mountains, and I got the call to come and investigate. And so a lot of times they don't give you the briefing of what is going on, just that something strange has occurred.
Okay.
And so my nickname was Ranger Mulder. And so I always was answering that anyway, because it seemed like it was coming at me more and more. But
Where
so
was Crater Lake at?
Crater Lake is up in Washington.
Oh, in Washington.
Oh, okay, Crater Lake. Okay, I thought you
Yeah.
said Crater Lake, because I've been
Oh,
there in Draper, Virginia.
Crater, yeah.
So
Crater
go ahead, I'm
Lake,
sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I get there and I'm taken up to the location, what they found. And once I arrived there, they had cordoned off the whole area, so nobody could get there, and they had a watch over it until I could get there. So I went in, and I was literally just kind of blown away. The location where the kid had been camping was very evident, and the The part that could not be explained was there was a log, a huge log, and half a torso, the bottom half of his torso, was sitting on the log, but there was no upper torso, and it was a clean cut across. Now, I was asked, well, was it an animal attack? No, if it was an animal attack, he would have been ripped to shreds.
Sure.
And body parts would have been all over the place. Now, the interesting thing was there was no animals around. You couldn't hear a bird chirping.
Okay, so let me make sure I get this right. So you find the lower torso just sitting on a log as if it's roasting marshmallows, and the upper
Right.
half is gone, clean
Mhm.
cut.
Yeah.
Did this hit the press?
No. Just the report that he was missing and that his body was found. It didn't go into the detail of what had occurred. See, there again, they didn't want negative activity that would
Yeah.
it would kind of turn people away from going into the parks if they were scared. Now, to be honest with you, the parks are dangerous. They are extremely dangerous, whether it be just from human stupidity, animal activity, or something else. And I've witnessed enough of the something else. And there definitely is something sinister in those areas.
First question I want to ask you, what is this incident was certainly, as a former detective myself, intriguing to investigate, very sad for
Mhm.
the victim family, obviously, but what have you personally seen anything other, obviously this you can't
Mhm.
explain, but anything that you've seen that you can't explain while in the parks?
Oh, have we got 6 hours? I mean,
No, we got
seriously.
about 15 minutes now, but kind of, does anything really strike you?
Well, in a lot of these cases, you get the reports of Bigfoot. You get the reports of elementals, UFO sightings, and so on. We had one ranger that was sent out to investigate, and we never heard back from him. And so we went out on a search and rescue, and we did find him eventually. He was in the backcountry, and he was found lying with his back down on a big, huge boulder. The strange thing about it was every single bone in his body was pulverized. He was just a meat sack.
That sounds like an X-Files episode, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was no blood splatter. People thought, well, maybe he fell, but there was no blood splatter. He was intact, with the exception of having every bone broken. And those are the type you scratch your head and say, what the heck is going on here? And there's no answer. And it becomes very frustrating. And no matter how hard you try, because one of the good things about what I've been able to do is I've been able to take my forensic studies in law enforcement and incorporate them into the paranormal field.
And, from our conversations, that's exactly the tack that we take with our group. So we're very, very similar in that.
Exactly.
And it helps us uncover answers, or at least get us on the direction of some answers that maybe otherwise we wouldn't have. So is this a common occurrence in our parks? And I'm not talking about our neighborhood parks. We're talking about state parks, national forests, things like that, correct?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. Recently, I encountered one time I was walking on patrol, and this was up in Yosemite in the backcountry. And a lot of times they'll send us into the backcountry on horseback, and just to monitor some of the backpackers and campers back in that area. And I was going on the trail with the horse, and the horse started acting up. And I got off the horse, and all of the birds and everything stopped chirping. It was just dead silence. And the horse was still acting real hinky. And finally, I heard a clicking noise, and it was up in the trees. And I looked up, and I kid you not, it was a scene right out of The Predator. And it was this shape, but it was reflective. Like you could see through it, but it was distorted. And just like in The Predator. And I kept hearing a clicking noise, and this thing was moving around in the trees. And I got the hell out of there. Even though I was armed, I didn't know what I was seeing. And since then, there have been a lot of sightings of these things. And
Are these documented at all? I mean,
there's a lot of people
true.
have reported them and talked about them. But in addition to that, we're also starting to have them being seen in the cities at some of the historical parks, like the Independence Hall and things like that.
Really?
So yeah, and it's not that uncommon to
Are they
get
sort of
reports from the
transparent?
cities.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. They're the
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah, I mean,
almost like it's a cloaking type thing.
Yeah,
Camouflage.
exactly. And I think the scariest thing that ever happened to me as a ranger was I and my partner responded to a accident in the park, an automobile accident. And as we were kind of doing the cleanup aspect of it, we were over by our truck, and he had his back against the door of the truck on the passenger side, and I was facing him. And I was talking with him, and then right in the windshield, or the side window was reflecting, behind. And I saw this shape behind me, and it was a hideous shape. It just a very distorted looking face. And I turned around real quick, and there was nothing there. But when I turned back to look in the window again, there it was. And I moved aside. I mean, I literally drew my weapon, my Glock, and I'm screaming at my partner, "Do you see it? Do you see it?" And he's saying, "What are you talking about?" He thought I'd lost my mind. And it was so unnerving, but there was nothing there. But I did see it in the reflection, and
I
not
gotta,
once, but
ask
twice.
you this question. You and I know each other, but I do have to ask this question.
Mhm.
Pareidolia?
No.
Okay.
No, I know the difference between that, where the whole matrixing and
Sure.
so forth, but this was a solid figure from
Wow.
what I could see in the reflection. It was solid.
And this is
And,
more of an urban area too, you're saying.
Yeah. So you just don't know what's out there in any of these places. It could have very well been interdimensional. It could have been something cloaked. I don't know, but the parks really do draw a lot of this activity. And it's just like with the missing 411. These are experienced people and that are out there. I mean, the whole idea of, and that's the whole reason why they call it the missing 411. 411, of course, is information. And the Park Service doesn't want to give that information. So that's why it's always called the missing 411.
Ah. Now,
And
there's an individual that kind of began the missing 411, Dave Palladius, I believe.
right.
You worked with him at all?
We did correspond a couple times on things. He's kind of into his own aspect of what it is, and he is trying to find a logical determination. Now, he has spoken to quite a few park rangers. In fact, that's how he became interested, because some of the rangers came up to him and says, "We'd like to talk to you about something." And that's exactly what it was. It was about the missing people and so forth. But it's just not, I mean, these are people hunters, trained hunters,
Mhm.
backpackers, children that 1 minute are right there and then the next minute they're gone.
Mhm.
There's never any signs of a struggle. They just disappear. Now,
Wow.
sometimes they're found, maybe not alive, but sometimes they are found. And usually they're found without shoes. In most every one of these cases, for some reason, they don't have any shoes on.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's one of the bigger mysteries. Now, some of them also have had their clothes removed, but they've been folded up very nicely.
Well-
And then the bodies are found.
Well, we're starting to run a little short on time. I'd like you to spend a little bit of time telling my audience a little bit about APRO, your organization. But I'd like to get you back. Sorry about the technical issues earlier. I'd actually like to delve into this a little bit further when we've got
Yeah.
more time. But these days you're retired, but you run a
Mhm.
very large organization that's in a
Correct.
number of states, Florida being one of them. Tell us a little bit about Cannabis Paranormal Research Organization.
Okay. Well, APRO began in 96 with my son. And we were living here in Colorado. And prior to that, of course, like I said, I'd gone into college to learn about parapsychology and also had been on some various teams out in California. But he was very interested, my son was. And so we went ahead, we developed this small group. Well, being a park ranger, we would go ahead and cross the country. And at each of the different locations where I was stationed, I would start a new chapter. And eventually we've come back here to Colorado, myself, and my son passed away 2 years ago. So I keep it going as his legacy. But we're very, very active. We have 5 chapters total, again, across the United States. And we have several sites in Europe that are interested in starting chapters.
Oh, very good.
So, and then we're also getting ready by probably the 1st of January, right after the new year, starting a chapter in New York. So we're in the process of getting that all put together. But we follow on scientific principles. Again, it's a throwback to my forensic days of trying to determine and rule out any possibility of misidentification. But there have been cases where we definitely know that it is a legitimate haunting. We also investigate UFOs, UFO cases of abduction. We also investigate cryptids. So
you're an all-purpose paranormal organization.
Pretty much so. But it's been an adventure because I've seen this start with just myself and my son to where now we've got pretty close to 200, 300 crew members out there that are doing these investigations.
And that's how I started with my son. So that's kind of an interesting relation. You've written a book also, I believe?
Yes. Yeah, it's actually in the at the publishers now. They're getting ready to publish it. It is The Park's Darkest Path, or the Park's Twilight Path, excuse me. And it deals with a lot of these incidences that have occurred in my life in the park system. And the final chapter, ironically, is dealing with incidences at amusement parks like Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm and Magic Mountain and those areas that have had cases of paranormal activity. So
interesting you mentioned that, because my team and I were up in Rock, West Virginia last November at the Lake Shawnee Haunted and Abandoned Amusement Park, which was quite the experience. We got some interesting stuff out of there. So
absolutely,
this park was built on top of unknown to them, on top of an Indian burial ground. But I don't know if that's the case in all of them, but it's just an interesting correlation nonetheless. Amusement parks, who would have thought the land would have fun?
One of the things that I have discovered is that entities, of course, feed off of energy.
Good point.
And when you go to an amusement park, there's 2 factors. There is joy and happiness, which is the majority of the energy there. And then every now and then a little bit of negative energy because they're scared of a ride or something.
Mhm.
And these entities not only are going back to places they loved, but it's like a buffet for them.
That's
And
interesting point.
yeah, so they are constantly being charged and able to manifest. And there have been many, many sightings. You know, the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland is one of the most haunted places.
I've actually heard that.
Yes.
Well, as much as I hate to say it, Chris, with all the stuff that went on with our tech today, we're getting really close to the end. So I want to thank you for joining us.
Mhm.
Would you mind coming back when the other side isn't messing with our equipment? Would you come back and finish the
Absolutely.
conversation? Great, 'cause
Absolutely, my friend.
we'd love to. And I want to thank everybody for listening today. Join us next week. I've got a very interesting two guests coming in, some local folks. But until then, I'd also like you to go ahead and check out our website at www.indianriverhauntings.com. And you're going to be able to see what we're doing this month. A lot of events going on this month that are not only to help you learn about the paranormal, the history of our area, but also to help out some community organizations that we think quite a bit of. And that's one thing our group likes. And I know Chris is the same way. We like to do things for the community. And I think, did we lose you again, Chris? Yep.
Are you still there?
Yeah, but he can't hear us.
Oh,
So.
he mentioned elementals.
Yes, elementals.
And earth, wind, fire, and water.
sure.
They're the four most common spirits that I've encountered over the years. And well, when you're talking about conducting a broadcast at a radio station, that's the earth, wind, fire, and water. The fire part is well, like electrical things that we're doing here.
Mhm.
Also motorized engines with gasoline combustion.
Mhm.
That
Good point.
Fire, earth, wind, fire, and water are the four elementals, and the fire can be something electric or something gas powered or anything, even lightning,
Mhm.
extreme heat in the sun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole study in
Yeah,
itself.
and they're tricksters too. They're not always accurate. They're familiar with a lot. A lot of people are familiar with them, but
Sure.
but they can be tricksters.
They can. But interesting
Sure.
show. Thank you so much, everybody out there, for being patient today as we work through our technical problems. But that was an interesting conversation. I'm going to have Chris back to talk more about the parks and the hauntings and going ons there. I thought that was quite fascinating.
Oh yes,
So-
absolutely.
So, like I said, join us next week for our next two guests. I think you'll enjoy it. They're local folks out of Stewart, and I think it's going to be a great show. So, join us next week, Wednesday, from 11 to noon. Thank you for listening. Be safe, be careful, and we'll see you on the other side.
Absolutely. Encounters with the Other Side. Special feature. WPSL brought to you by Indian River Hauntings. Check out IndianRiverHauntings.com and join one of their paranormal tours. Think about that. And one other thing, this is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast webcaster to the world on Google Home, Alexa, and the TuneIn app on your smartphones. And remember, IndianRiverHauntings.com. Time right now is 12 noon.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Rocket Mortgage.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. Sci-fi fans were glued to their screens as a Hollywood star made it to space and back today. Correspondent Peter King watched too, as Star Trek's William Shatner became the oldest person to make it to the Kármán line.
He got a huge round of applause as he stepped out of the spacecraft.
It was so moving.
While the entire flight lasted about 10 minutes, William Shatner waxed poetic about it for almost as long after touchdown, calling space's black and the Earth's blue overwhelming.
There is Mother and Earth and comfort, and is there death? I don't know. Is that death? Is that the way death is? Well, and it's gone.
Shatner and his crewmates were treated to a champagne shower to celebrate the experience of a lifetime.
Millions of Social Security recipients are in for a small windfall. CBS's Linda Kenyon.
The 5.9% cost of living adjustment, which goes into effect next year, comes as the country faces inflation, along with struggles to shake off economic drag from the pandemic. For the average recipient, it amounts to about $92 a month and affects the household budgets of about 1 in 5 Americans.
The increase is a 39-year high. Catholic service members have the blessing of the military's top religious leader to refuse COVID vaccinations. Correspondent Cammie McCormick is at the Pentagon.
The Archbishop for the military services says no one should